briefly summarize what you were saying.
In terms of the frequency.
I mean, just briefly summarize what you were saying about the difficulties with the starting of projects. Not necessarily every detail, but kind of give people a small overview of what you've been working on and where things are going. And do you have any idea like when it'll be ready? Would be another good question.
Well, I am hoping for a little assistance with these ideas, and um, well, and I am getting some, to be honest, but there's an awful lot of things that I've got to tie together. Um,
Aaron's probably the best programmer in the Pulse group right now. I learn something if I have to, but I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I've been out of the programming game a long time.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm not doing anything too heavy, but this Jupiter system, and it's a system that hooks up um, a number of data science applications, um, very powerful data science applications through the Anaconda system. It's another layer on top of Windows that doesn't really even bother with Windows, to be
Isn't
honest. It's
isn't isn't Python
Anaconda.
Linux based?
Uh, yeah, Anaconda. Yeah.
Well, right, you were talking about Python, but isn't Python Linux based?
It is perfect on a Linux platform, yes,
And
and
so
it's part of the
Anaconda.
Linux core. In fact, Python 2.3, I think, is part of the Linux core. So what I'm saying is, some of Linux is written in Python. For example, the Apache web server. There are a lot of very good pieces of software written in Python. Um, so all this stuff, it works very well on a Linux platform. It works much better, in fact, and you've got access to all the open source software through GitHub. Um, it's a fantastic resource, and so you don't have to spend thousands of pounds on software. You can basically build your own software libraries, manage your own software libraries, make sure you know when your updates are required, or if you don't want to use updates, you don't ever have to use them. So you have to go through this continual process of learning, and then having to learn a new blasted product every couple of months, with a different UI on it. So Jupiter is a great way to collaborate on a project.
So
You
so briefly describe for people what our little experiment is about from your end, and then I'll talk about my end, and I'll also then go into the other topic.
right? Well, basically, um, it comes down to mankind has always uh, accepted cosmic influences as having a big relevance on the process of life and their lives, and that these cycles that happen in the stars, they seem to the cycles are reflected on things that happen on the planet Earth, and on
Right.
all the life forms there, and uh, and so as we are more capable in tracking the uh, the motions of the planets in relation to both us, um, as um, as a frame of reference, and then we know that obviously um, we've got to go through a solar frame of reference to track the planets, um, and so the science to do that has improved and improved to the extent now that we can, with our satellites, we can track from uh, uh, a star reference to see how the sun is actually interacting with other stars in terms of its position, and we find that there are correspondences in the cycles of the planets, which produce frequencies which can be interpreted um, through changing the octaves in terms of musical notes, and we can, if we look at these interacting sound waves that we produce, we can see that there are correlations with the solar activity, with the peaks and troughs of the music of the spheres. So Professor Schnall, in doing millions and millions of operations, found that the conditions were changing cyclically. He was doing many thousands of experiments, and he was getting inexplicable troughs and peaks in the time it took for various chemical reactions to occur. These fluctuated, and he became to be able to predict these fluctuations, and these fluctuations correspond. One of them, an 11-year fluctuation, corresponded with the position of Jupiter on the solar ecliptic. It dives from kind of a north to a south position every 6.5 years, and depending where we are, the sun kicks out a hell of a belt, and nuclear reaction times change, nuclear decay rates change, crystallization rates change. And so people have been tracking these changes, and it seems to synchronize with the sun being jerked around.
Well, and this leads into my part. I noticed that one of the satellites, and I can't recall the name of the satellite, from the north view of the sun, puts out these 6. It looked like weather vanes. It looked almost like a big wind turbine, and the sun is just spraying these out. And it began to dawn on me, because of the sun's rotation rate, that it's possible that you might be able to explain the Chinese concept of the alternating day types and what I see clinically with this rotation and when these hit. And so I brought this theory up to you, and you started digging and found the Scafetta paper, and yeah, so we're going to work on creating this simulation, and I think that the ultimate goal is to go in the direction of creating our own universal sandbox too, maybe with a combination of Space Engine's ability to fly around, do whatever you like. And that's the exciting thing that I wanted to talk about, is that the new Unreal Engine 5 has come out, and not only has my son actually made something in Unreal Engine 5, but now we have they've released a video. I shared it into the post there. I'll put a link in the description. They have now procedurally generated cities, which goes to my solar system electric circuit, solar system conquering solar system paper, where I talk about the future AI will be able to pre-engineer and design procedurally the terraforming apparatus once it has all the parameters of this does this and this does this, and it has those like we do with cities. It'll be able to lay out the entire terraforming project a systems and design engineer will be able to oversee, an aerospace engineer and systems engineer will be able to oversee the entire process, all in the pre-engineering before it's simulated, before it's even fabricated. Of course, then right down to the components, how much tonnage would be needed of each raw material can then be applied to a larger industrial framework, and everything can be scooped up and found, and then it can be launched out. And if it can't be found on Earth, maybe it'll be found in the asteroid belt, and the computing will be able to bring all this information together with realistic CAD, uh, I guess you would say precision, and all this will be able to come together. And it all starts with us looking for the answer to the effects of the PIM on our daily lives, combining with some of the computer graphics stuff that they're already working on. So already the Conquering the Solar System paper coming in very handy as a form of MIMS. Like, things are emergent, they're co-emergent. We can't say that my paper did it, but it so happens it's going in this direction. And as soon as you started looking for solutions, I mean, you found several tools that just really no one's just put together, which ideally they would have already put together. Would that be a fair assessment?
Basically, yeah, there are so many different tools knocking about that it requires quite a lot of software capability, you know, in Linux to put these tools together. And
Right.
so a
That's a rare
framework
skill.
like Anaconda will do that in a split second. It doesn't. They're very gentle with the operating system, especially in Linux. It just flows seamlessly on a Linux-based system. Windows always gets in between things. Always there's always a restriction, uh, either of getting at the data that you want behind the program or in how you view the data. You know, there's always a lack of interactivity.
Right. Do
There are updates
you consider that some kind of conspiracy, or do you think it's actually normal programming behavior?
it's normal programming behavior. If you But basically what they've done for 40 years is using exactly the same software routines and put a different front end on it. There is so much rot in the software that Windows is an unstable system. I mean, it's much better than what it has been for years, to be honest. It's Windows 10, but they still promotes other Windows software, which generally you would have to pay for a license fee for at some point. All this software, and then the updates, 200 quid for a throw, 3,000 quid a year license for AutoCAD. You know, and you can get perfectly well. Blender will do anything that AutoCAD can do, and it interfaces
Getting
with
Blender, you should see what they're getting Blender to do with the Unreal Engine 5. If you haven't got a chance to watch that video yet, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, I'm familiar with quite a lot of it. I haven't looked at any recently. And what's the licensing what's the licensing situation with Unreal 5? It's a
Well,
free seat, isn't it?
so far, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure they have some reserved for the biggest companies like Blizzard and EA. You know, some probably keep their best stuff in the back pocket. But I mean, currently they've even got one of the space projects have been simulated on there where they build a habitation, and it's actually simulated. So because it is a physics engine, it's not going to be. It's going to be a physics engine that we have to modify or add to, because right now it's just kinetic. But their chaos engine actually enables in game, not pre rendered artistic cutscenes, but in game explosions, car crashes, bullet time, all that kind of stuff. So it'll be something that we're able to utilize as a backbone. is why I'm so excited about using Unreal Engine 5 for our personal space engine type projects. I'm sure the guy who's doing space engine is probably already moving in that direction, but he won't be doing it with what we have. But the problem is we'll need a programmer. And if anybody's listening out there who is a programmer, we're going to need a programmer who is willing to work on and pull up Hannes Alphen and Ralph Jurgens and Donald Scott's mathematics and combine it into a model inside of the engine, and then and also to learn about the electric current sheets in space, because we're going to need that stuff to even create a rough model. And we have known mathematical models for the magnetic tunnels, the Van Allen belts, the particular loops that are they go from the north to the south pole on the Earth. I forget what the name of those are. And we have, so there are mathematical models already for that, and how to generate the magnetic fields.
These are all field simulations, and there's existing very good programming out there, dynamic programming, which expresses the interaction of a number of bodies electromagnetically in a field or gravitationally in a field, whatever sort of field you want to put in there. They're all field equations. I can do something with this pretty fast, in fact, Ramon. Yeah, and it is just really getting this the field equations and having them interact over a matrix, so that they're organized, and all the sort of laws of science are expressed in the field equations in this matrix that we produce, and then how many elements that you have in the matrix becomes millions and millions. It becomes harder to compute, and so then you've got to separate that into areas of interest, and then let the rest of it that you're observing and let the rest of it get on and number crunch. So that I'm sure they're writing a sandbox in 3D. Another thing is, if we're going to hook it into the astronomical data, we can't really just use XYZ coordinates. You've got to use a polar coordinate system that's using astronomy.
Right. Right.
And so that's
what the benefit of this, Bill, is that there are already polar coordinate models for lightning distribution, though. So we'll be able to add, of course, mega, take the lightning models and then bring them up to the scale of Paradian thunderbolts. We'll be able to create distributions. We could show, as the spheres move by each other, when that connection was made from probably Venus to the Saharan Desert at the Rishat. Based on my analysis of the dust, it's looking like neither the moon nor Mars could be the source, and so it's probably Venus. When that connection is made, how far around the world would that actually extend? Of course, that's going to mean adding a couple of parameters to certain known spheres, like the Earth, like the thickness of the crust and overall mineral composition. But this is like a project that could, over the next 20 years, be the equivalent of those Kepler models. I mean, it could make an impact on mankind's thinking for thousands of years.
If we can run a soapbox that free thinking people can use and express their ideas on.
I reckon even regular people, because we can put it on Steam, and then regular people could do it, also the scientists could use it, because we'd be using Hannes Alphen as the primary backbone.
Well, the thing is with this Python system that it is interactive, and anyone can go on and log onto the system and onto the notebook and use the facilities interactively. That would mean, for example, showing the data which they're interested in, um, getting very very concisely displayed data, which is interactive, so you can see the effects on various scales on a model. All sorts of really good visualizations that are interactive, and it's all web based. People can contribute. Whether the contribution, I suppose people can look at whatever contributions are on there, can't they? They don't have to look at them, or it doesn't,
Well, we're going to make it. I mean, other than what we package as a game and sell on Steam, I mean, we're gonna provide the code. It'll be open source because that's the way we roll. Yeah, they could take it and they could really roll with it. I mean, it sounds like they have protections from the original database from keeping people from adding Nibiru's and whatnot, but I don't see why we wouldn't allow people to experiment. You know, what would happen if a Schultz star came flying through our solar system? What kind of inductions would it create as it went through? You know, they act like that just came through and did nothing. It just kind of passed on through. Now, how would that be? How would that be possible? I mean, realistically, how would it be possible for it to not have some effect? And back then, it was a dwarf star; it wouldn't have been the sun. So as it was passing through, it may have been exactly what started the entire process down. If I remember correctly, that Schultz star dating is like roughly 70,000 years ago. And not that long after that was when mankind started using symbols. I mean, not that long geologically speaking.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that that's an accident. There's an entire paper that I could write. I just don't have time for it.
Well, the only way we know anything about any planetary observations are through these ephemerides, which have been kept since the first millennia BC, at varying levels of accuracy. But there have been a lot of things to affect their interpretation, of course. But these are the only things that have that give us a clue to how the planets have been rotating in the past. Maybe even the speeds of rotation. We can see differences over the 3,000 years in terms of the location reported and the speeds of rotation. We can, and the last update of the ephemerides on the NASA's Horizons program, done just I think maybe 5 years ago or something, was they changed the ephemerides to take into account that I think it's the Taurid meteors, which actually seem to deflect the path of, I think it might be the Earth, on a regular cycle. I don't know what that is off the top of my head. But because it's so observational, that then goes in the epicycles into the Fourier time analysis, so it's time independent, and that's registered as a movement which will occur on that cycle. So using these ephemerides and winding them back maybe 2,000 years, it will take us somewhere, but we've got to find out the rate of change of the state, really, not just the actual state, but the rate of change of the state. So there's a lot of data we can find inside this ephemerides, which is something else I'm trying to get at the moment through the layers, and I'm pretty close to be able to doing it. So that's the software stuff I'm on with at the moment. I'd be very happy to join to do something on the you write a universal sandbox on the on the game engine. But I think it'd be a good idea. I think it'd be a good idea to have a shared space, if we can do it through Google or something like that,
Absolutely.
onto
Absolutely.
onto the same system. So, two of us, if you're working
I think what
on
we
a
should
little
do is
bit, we can work through the algorithm.
we could even have a public interacting page on the gateway, and I could just share edit rights to the gateway. You'd be able to interact, and then we can embed project documentation, like Google documentation, on there, and people could see our chats and responses, etc. So we can get all that set up today if you really wanted. It wouldn't be hard. Very easy.
Well, I think it'd be a great start, really. And I think if we go through a Cartesian world to start off with, because all the models will be drawn in Cartesians, and then you've got functions in Python which will convert XYZ coordinates into, it's called astropy, and it'll convert them into astronomical units that you can then interact with the astronomical data that's fed through the widgets from the satellites. And to the extent that you'll be able to get live data down from the satellites into this system. That you will actually be able to, and then so that'll mean that you'll be able to test the validity of your network according to live data, so you can see how and then change how your network operates. Change the weights, change the network, the neural weights of the network according to the new data that you just brought in, and so your model is always improving and improving. And yeah, that's a lot of that can be now. C sharp, I think C sharp is a language for that, isn't it? For the
I don't
game
know.
engine.
Like I say, I've been out of computer engineering so long. I really need to do a deep dive myself and just learn what's currently, in practice. What's good? What's going on out there?
Yeah, I think they had a C++ interface, and they got, I think, if it's the Windows locked in version, they have their own version of, it's a kind of a C++, but a Microsoft one called C sharp. But then you've got to use that, you've got to go through all the bleeding Microsoft development kit, software development kit, which is an expensive lump of money. Um, so now there's the Unreal Engine, and what's the other engine on the market at the moment as well?
Oh,
Unity.
yeah. There's actually a
Um,
couple of them. But I don't know. I don't think all of them are available for public uh, license. And Unreal Engine 5 might not stay that way, so it'd be a good idea for everybody who wants to get involved to go ahead and get in on the data, download it. But I mean, so far you can even develop an Unreal Engine 4 first as well. So stable.
well, I mean, the thing about the Unreal Engine is that they've developed the physics engine, the game engine, and you run with what's in that. Now, of course, if we're making our own physics engine, the that is something you could prototype very fast in something like in Python, in Blender, and Blender's so easy to use, to be honest, because using the Unreal Engine, that's you're just producing for their engine, if you know what I'm saying. I know it's a great system with the graphics, and it's great to go over that way. But you've got the Microsoft lock in with the Visual Studio. Whereas, all my software, my C++, Python, whatever I want to use. If I want to learn Java, Java's a good one to use, because that's what all the web interfaces are written in. Then that's Node.js, which is the latest one of those out. We'll have to have a look at the licensing and the actual. Let's have a look at Unreal Engine. I haven't had a look at them for a little while.
I think it's very promising.
I'm sure it is.
I'm very excited about the how quickly the tools, because when I first started the EPMC, I despaired of the fact that it seemed like we would never get these tools necessary, because I've been thinking about a physics simulation engine that incorporated all the forces and known physics. Been thinking about that for a while, and I mean known physics, not only the pseudoscience. I've been thinking about that for a long time, and it just seemed like we would never get that opportunity. It was something that kind of gave me a little bit of anxiety. And now we're already seeing, the universe is really providing us some tools. I just find it marvelous. I just love it.
Yeah, and it's we have the data, we have the tools. Now we need to put them together.
Exactly.
That's what our job is.
Yeah, no one else.
Sorry, go on.
I said, well, no one else is going to do it. Obviously, we can't expect these universities to do it. Apparently, it used to be the university was the not to go on too long of a rant. It used to be the university was the bedrock of scientific progress, but not seeing that so much these days, personally.
No, I don't think so. I mean, there was a lot more tie between industry and local industries and universities than what there are now, and all the fundings comes from central government or massive multinationals who.
Well, I just think that a lot of the best talent's not going into university physics. That's just the way I think of it. And I define talent probably differently than they would. They probably define it by who can do the most maths. That's just not how I see talent in terms of how to carry this forward to future generations.
Well, absolutely, and it's a system designed to put people under financial pressure for when they start work, so that they're completely trainable, malleable. They've got to put massive work stints in, without promotion or without anything for years and years, and they're owned. And by the time they've got a mortgage and they're in a job they can't afford to leave, and it's drudgery. Yeah, the actual a lot of the models that they use in the Unreal Engine, you can actually import them in from Blender. So a lot of the modeling work, just about all of it, the walk cycles, the expressions on the faces, much of all that can be done in Blender. And the game engine at the end of the day is a rendering engine. that's about it, really. The more graphics processing you've got, the more frames per second, and you can also compute these explosions and stuff, which are pretty chunky to produce. Now, you've got to bear in mind that in most of these games, you can't the simulations are sort of just visual trickery. We can't compute for every grain of dust in a universe.
Right.
But sort of for large bodies, etc.
But we can procedurally, just like Space Engine, right? They procedurally generate the rest.
Exactly, and it's the scale that you view it on. Of course, if you only have to render the graphics for what you're actually looking at, not the whole world. So it's you're using a finite state machine almost. So that, yeah, the framework's worth a lot of thought, and it is worth a lot of thought. The schedule on it, there's a lot of things to do, but it's all basic game programming. To do this, it's basic game programming, and there are a lot of game programmers very interested in doing this sort of work who are out there.
I just gotta to join up with us in our super best friends.
Well, it's basically, if people have worked to a standard that is usable in a project, then bring it on. Yeah. The more people look at it, maybe there'll be commercial opportunities arise somewhere.
Absolutely, and that would be my other thing, is that if the universe is responding as well as we're talking about, and so quickly, I would imagine that it's going to respond in all sorts of ways. But people got to focus on it. That's the one difference there. If they can focus on it, I predict that they could do very well. There's a saying: the universe hates a secret, and I think that these secrets have been held long enough. It's time. The universe wants it to come out. And Hans Alphen, he did his best. We can't keep leaning on him for the next 100 years and saying, well, look, if they'd just listened to Hans Alphen, well, yeah, and if they hadn't railroaded Helton Arp, and they're now starting to realize, of course, how right old Ralph Jurgens was, and that's great. I mean,
my generation has no concept of plasma. We weren't taught about plasma at school. I didn't know what plasma. I've read the papers most of my life. I tried to keep informed, but I didn't know what plasma was until maybe 10 years ago.
I mean,
And there are millions of people like
about.
that. There's a whole branch of physics that astrophysicists have never even heard about, and that's why they've got to stick to their own paradigm of gravity.
Right.
uh, and so it's kind of our job to bring it into the mainstream. This
No
is
one
how
else.
it's, yeah. It is.
And no one else. If we expect the mainstream to do it, it's not going to happen, because there's no literal financial incentive to do that. There's just there's no reason for them to abandon the occult power and monetary power they get from that. There.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this whole idea from a kind of let's say a philosophical standpoint, I really didn't want to. I've been aware of this sort of digital 3D modeling and this sort of world for quite a number of years now, and it's very easy. It's very easy to absorb yourself into it and sort of never come out again. You know, the 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 prospects in the 3D world uh, uh, can seem much more exciting than the actual reality of being, you know, ensconced in a bedroom on a cold day in the, you know, day after day. You know, you can be, you're in a different world instead. And I think, you know, and I think it'd be very easy to make that into some kind of sort of fantasy daydream, rather than a sensible sort of do or die situation, which is what you'd be on a planet. maybe. Well, to start off with, certainly. But yeah, there are so many things you could model, like all this geoforming. You know, if you can speed time up by a factor of 20 million, or 20,000 or whatever, see how your plans are going to, with our current knowledge, how they're going to transpire.
Right.
If the simulations that we use are good, they're meaningful, that they have, you know, that it's not, you know, that you can see meaningful correlations between uh, the inputs and the outputs in the simulations. You know, confidence factor, all the rest of it. So yeah, so there's millions of things to go with. You know, and would you start, like, I suppose a child would start with a room, or if you look at a program like
I'd love to continue this conversation, but I do have to go and treat somebody. I'm gonna hit the stop record. So I can get it to work.
okay, Ramon, I'll catch you in a bit anyway.
Yes, we'll talk soon.
Okay,
Good short.
yeah, see you in a bit.